We're on page page 14. Areni halacha hey, Zayin Aves. Areni Nazir. Guy says, I'm a Nazir, V'alayla galech Nazir, and I have to bring korbanos for a Nazir. Okay, so he said two things. I'm a Nazir and I have to bring korbanos for a Nazir. V'shama Chaver, his friend said, V'amar, Va'ani, he said Va'ani, and V'alayla galech Nazir, I also have to bring the korbanos for Nazir. He said two things. Va'ani, V'alayla galech Nazir. That's going to be important. If they were smart, each guy's got to become a Nazir and bring korbanos for a Nazir. So Reuven should become a Nazir and bring the korbanos of Shimon, and Shimon should become a Nazir and bring the korbanos for Reuven, right? That way each guy brings korbanos to the other one, and everybody, nobody loses. No, that's the whole point. Because somebody volunteered to bring korbanos on their behalf. That's right. If they're dumb, v'im lav, then they bring their own korbanos, and they'll bring additional korbanos to shave somebody else. So obviously, best even them to get together.
During the actual process, they actually bring the korbanos, or just
No, they're not kohanim. They're bringing to the base of mikdash. The kohanim do it. Do you know that a Kohen who's Nazir can't do the avodah anyway? His hair's too long. He can't. He's not allowed to do it with hair more than 30 days growth. Yeah. He brings the korban to the Beis HaMikdash, and the Kohen does the avodah.
Well, how does it work? How do they know it's going to be done?
What do you mean, how do they know? The Nazir says, here are my korbanos. Here's the money, actually, to buy my korbanos. Is this a trick question, Bino?
Okay. This guy is bringing it for the other guy.
Right, he says, I'm bringing this for Reuven Nazir.
Right.
I'm Shimon Nazir. Reuven Nazir is bringing for me.
So
right?
That's enough to just say, I'm bringing this for this guy.
Yeah, and the quantum is shafted for that guy.
Okay. I'm kind of for the guy. All you're doing is finding.
What is your hidden agenda here?
I'm just thinking, like, what? Is he actually bringing it for one? Or is he all like for one? Or is he just...
No, he's devoting them to that person.
Okay.
Donating them. Okay? It says more, Ahain Vani Matavle. This word, this term, Vani and me, what do you do with it? Vani al Kol Diburo? Is that he going on the entire statement? In other words, if I hear you say, I'm going to the store today and then I'm going to go exercise. So, and I say Vani. Is that on I'm going to the store today or also on the I'm going to go exercise, right? Okay? Is it going out Kol Diburo or Vani al Chatzi Diburo? Itav dini Vani al Kol Diburo. So if you're going to say Vani goes on the entire statement the first guy made, Omar, then what he's saying is Vani Nazir. The second guy is saying Vani on all aspects of the Nazirus, right? Just like the first guy is Nazir, I'm also Nazir. If you say Vani goes on half of the first guy's statements, Omar, he says Hareini Nazir. Now, what's the between Ani Nazir and Hareini Nazir? The Mashbiach explains he accepts the Nazirs itself, but not the details. For example, let's say the first guy took a neder to become a Nazir for 50 days. Right? First guy said I'm a Nazir for 50 days. Another guy said Vani. So if you say Vani is the entirety of the first guy's statement, so then he means I'm also Nazir for 50 days. If you just say it means Hareini Nazir, all it means is that the second guy is going to be Nazir as well. But his term will not be 50 days. His term will be the minimum 30 days. Okay? So Vani, the Gemara is using to mean the entirety. Hareini, the Gemara means only the actual a transaction, not its parameters. Tiny base Rebbe, so we learned to the house of Rebbe. Vani goes out Kol Dibur on the entire statement. Rabbi Yossi. Now, sorry, before we go further, here the Mashbiach puts in the words from later on. If you skip down to Rabbi Yossi again, which is not this first Rabbi Yossi, but the one later on, which is five lines below that. Rabbi Yossi said Masnisa, and the Mashbiach also throws in here the word lo. Masnisa lo Merkin. Our Mishnah does not hold that Vani Nazir goes on everything. Why? Because it says in our Mishnah, the first guy says Haredi Nazir, Ba'alai Galech Nazir. First guy says I'm a Nazir and it's incumbent upon me to shave a Nazir, right? V'shama Chavero, and his friend said V'amar, and he said Vani and V'amar also for Laila Galech Nazir. He said both, right? So if Vani goes on the entirety like Rebbe holds, so you don't have to say Vani V'Laila Galech Nazir. The Vani also goes on the V'Laila Galech Nazir. If you have to add on the V'Laila Galech Nazir, it must be this man Damar holds. Ani only goes on the beginning of the statement, not on the end of the statement, okay? On the essence of the statement, not its totality, okay? Going back to where we were before. Rabbi Yosef said, Hadam Ras teaches us, Echot Shamar Eini Nazir Kufio. So one guy says, I'm a Nazir for 100 days. The Shama Chaver, his friend, said, Vamar Vani, I am a Nazir too. Zen Nazir Kufio. The first guy's a Nazir for 100 days. The Zen Nazir Lamio, but the second guy, since Vani doesn't go on the whole thing, but only on the essence, so the second guy's only Nazir for how many days? For 30 days. Right? Very simple.
Is it possible in the Lashon of the Mishnah, when it says Vani, it's when you retire, if you
You know what? It could be that's true. It could be that the Vani that's not the way the Mashbiach learned, and the way the Mashbiach threw in the word the Masisa lo. Our Mishnah is not like Rebbe, but you're trying to make the Mishnah work like Rebbe, and the Vani is only going into the details of the Nazirus, not on the separate obligation to. Could be. Maybe one could learn like that. It's not bad. Okay. In terms of if you want to be 100 days like the first guy, he's got to say Hareni Kamoisoi, Hareni Kayetse Boy. He's got to say full, either Hareni Kamoso or Hareni Kayetse, which indicates that he's still undertaking the totality of the first guy's years. Tan Rabbi Chia said Harei Laila Galeach. The Mashbiach, I think it's Mashbiach, takes out the word Chatzi. And he puts instead Nazir. Harei Galech Nazir. Because of Amar Harei Nazir. Guy says, I want to shave a Nazir. Now, to shave a Nazir, by the way, doesn't mean literally to take a razor and to shave it. What it means is to bring his karbanos. The karbanos are the precondition to shaving, right? So he says, Harei Galech Nazir, because of Amar Harei Nazir. And then he said, you know what? Not only do I want to be the Korbanos of Nazir, I want to be a Nazir myself. So Gilech lo yem lamed. So if he was Megalech himself on the 30th day, he was Yotze. He was Yotze both his Nadarim. His Yotze is Neder to shave a Nazir, and it was Yotze's Neder to be a Nazir, right? So it says the Gemara, now skipping what we learned before, which means skipping to the third line. I should say, throws it again. Our Mishnah says like this. Okay, now skipping. If they're smart, they can be magalech each other, right? They shave each other. Why not themselves? So it must be mivnei sha'amar harini nazir v'alayla galech nazir. Interesting point. Had he said harei alayla galech nazir first, and then he would have said harini nazir, so then his first neder can take effect on his second neder, and he can fulfill his own two nedarim by bringing his own korbanos at the end. But if he first said harini nazir, then he's already obligated to bring korbanos, right? Then his second neder to bring korbanos has to be a separate neder from his first neder to be a nazir. And then he can't bring his korbanos for himself, but rather he's got to bring besides that korbanos for the neder for his friend. It's a beautiful shot, which is what it says, okay? Our Mishnah indicates that only if his saying Harei Alayla Galeach precedes Harei Nazir, then it works. But not if he said Harei Nazir, then Harei Alayla Galeach. Right. 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 He's got to have the specific before the general, exactly. Right. Uh-huh. Right. Right. This case, it's going like our Mishnah, right? He takes out the Chetzi. Meshbiach says a mistake. It'll come up later. It's we're gonna have Chetzi in the next Mishnah. But here he said, yeah. Haha, you think you're joking. Alright, anyway, no, you are. In this case, you are. Alright, so let's go further. Aval Amar, what if a guy said, a lot, but this is exactly the point made, just we stopped in the middle sentence. Aval Amar, Harei Alayla Galech, again he takes, the Mashbiach takes out the Chatzi. Alayla Galech Nazir. The Chos of Amar, Harei Nazir, then he says Harei Nazir himself. He Galech Latzmo Yotzer is Yoitzer. He does himself, he's Yoitzer. Okay, all this more or less is in the Bavli, although not quite exactly the same way. The rest of it is not in the Bavli. Nichosh Sheni Legalech es Harishon. I understand if you have the second guy who took upon himself the in our Mishnah, right? The first guy says, I'm a Nazir and I'll lie Legalech Nazir. The second guy says, I already Nazir, will lie Legalech Nazir. Right? So I understand the second guy can shave the first guy. Harishon Legalech es Hasheni. How can the first guy shave the second guy? When he made his neder, the second guy was not yet a Nazir. It's what? What's the problem? The second guy is not yet a Nazir? No, not quite. Davar shlo b'olola. It's something which doesn't yet exist. Right? When the first Nazir took his note, I'm a Nazir and Alayla Galech Nazir, so the assumption is it only takes effect on a Nazir who's already exited, not a Nazir who shall be sometime in the future. So, no, that's what I would have thought, and you would have thought. But the Chiddush in the Yerushalmi is that Davar shlo b'olola applies to the Nadarim as well. Normally, I would have thought until seeing this sugya, as I did think, that Davar shlo b'olola only applies to monetary transaction. So which does exist, you cannot buy or sell. Because it says you're actually limited on the types of Nadarim which work on Davar shlo b'olola as well. Okay? If you said a neder, which seems to indicate that it's talking about something which already exists, then it cannot take effect. And here the neder was to Harei Alayla Galech Nazir. It's mashma somebody who's already Nazir. That's where the Gemara is learning it. Okay? So it says the Gemara, again, Nicho Shein L'Gayas Rishon, the second guy can shave the first guy, me beat his korbanos. Rishon Galech Sheni, how come? Rabbi Yisrael Shem Nazir said, no, it works. Zosmer teacher Sha'adam Kovel of Korban Nazir, Vasi Lizor. You can contemplate the korban of the Naziris before the Naziris himself. The doctor are separate. That's a conclusion. Rabbi Chani, Rabbi Sheh, Rabbi Chin, Rabbi Sheh, Rabbi Zira Amar. Plus, from here we've learned three things. Adam Ras teaches us in Gilech Latzmo Yotzo. We saw it before. As long as your neder for korbanos precedes your neder for Naziris, you can shave yourself. Adam Ras teaches us Sha'ana Kovel Chaver Korban Nazius Lizor. Like Bino pointed out before, this is a chiddush that a person can bring his friend's korbanos on Nazirus. He can pay for them, but that's what it says here. Adam Ras teaches us Sha'ana Kovel Chaver Korban Nazir Shlomi Daito. Person can do it even out his friend's awareness, right? It's like Zachin Ladim Shlomo Fanam. The Zamish just said they'll figure out who they are later, but they can do it even Shlomi Daito. Avol, however, that's only kover. That's only to set. In other words, to obligate. But to bring the korbanos to Beis Hamikdash, at that point, already you need to have the das of the other individual for you to bring the korbanos. Rabbi Mana asked in front of Rabbi Yehuda, what about Amar? Amar, I really like korban nazir. What if a guy says he wants a korban nazir? B'shosh and Nazar, at the time that he made Nazirus, stop. And he says it generically. So in that case, I know, Ben Nazir Shekvar, Nazir Ben Shekvar, Ben Shasi Nazar. Makes no difference. You can do it on any Nazir, both one which already exists or one which doesn't yet exist. Like we said before, a person could take the indication of our Mishnah. This person could be the Korbanos even if a person is not yet a Nazir. However, Pilish, what if he said specifically that he wants to bring on a Nazir who's not yet a Nazir? And somebody who's not yet a Nazir wants to bring Korban Nazirs. He said that explicitly. Now watch the Rabbi says there's a tremendous measure of Chochmah in this, or Samech. Says Gavaldik Yechidi, she says, listen, you know what you see from this Yerushalmi? Why when a guy takes a neder to bring Korbanos for a guy who's not yet a Nazir, that doesn't work? Because Migo, that there are other Nazirim in the world right now. Since there are other Nazirim, so, and he could have brought for another Nazir, so it works even for Nazir who hasn't yet taken his Nazirus. Says the Meshachar, says, but if the guy in the next case says, I want a dafka bring in somebody who's not yet a Nazir. I want somebody who's not, none of the Nazirim in the world right now will fulfill my obligation. I want somebody who's not yet a Nazir. And that the Gemara is about to say doesn't work. Okay? So that's what it says here. Yeva Kadon, this we say this, that mitzmamish davish tobolim, Rabbi Levi bar Chiyasa, boy, Rabbi Levi Chiyasa asked, Kosel adinu dvorim enu chasai chasin lipolach. If somebody says, I don't want to have, to his wife, I don't want to have anything to do with property which is going to fall to you. Ma'ain, what's halacha? And we say, the Yeshua Damasa Dav Shlabon, can a person make a sign say which doesn't yet exist? And that does not work. Now here too, if a person said, I want to bring my Korban dafka on a person who's not yet a Nazir, it doesn't work. So it says in Yerushalmi, what's in Shema when he says it generically, and when he says it dafka on a person who's not yet a Nazir, so the difference is between a person's makna davar shelo ba'olam, something which doesn't yet exist by itself, or a makna davar shelo ba'olam with a davar haba'olam. If you do together something which doesn't exist together with something which exists. And he says, we see from our sugya, from here, from the Yerushalmi, that works. That's taki a valid transaction. If I'm asking you the corn futures of 2001, together with the existing corn of 2000, it works. If I'm asking you the corn of 2001 by themselves, it doesn't work. But if I do 2000 together with 2001, it does work. What's the difference? We see in our sugya the difference. Person says they want to bring korbanos on any Nazir. So it means it could be a Nazir which is already a Nazir, or a Nazir which will become a Nazir. That's like davar shelo ba'olam, vid davar ba'olam. That works. But if he says he only wants to bring his korbanos, I thought he was going to be a Nazir in the future, that's davar shelo, that doesn't work. So I see. What? Which one? No, the Meshach or Samech says we learn from our Gemara that it works. This is the source. The Or Samech wants to say that's the chiddush of our Gemara. So I think the way to explain it is based on the big Sheish, which brings down Noida Yehuda. The big Sheish is totally superfluous. So Noida Yehuda though, which is important. Noida Yehuda says that the reason why you can't be makna davar shelo ba'olam is because of lack of miras das, a lack of full intent. You don't really have full, complete intent and awareness of transactions on things which don't exist. So I was thinking, if you're makna davar shelo ba'olam together with davar shelo ba'olam, you do that together, so you have at least sufficient das for one. And that das extends itself to the rest of it, that should be sufficient das for both. That's what I think the svara is. In other words, the person who was completely davar shelo ba'olam, he's not serious about it. Can't be serious. It's not real. But if he has something which is ba'olam to go something with low ba'olam, then the seriousness which pervades the part of the kingdom which is ba'olam spills over to the part of the kingdom which is not ba'olam. That's what I would say.
So he makes a neder for future Nazir.
Yeah.
Is it law mark?
By itself, law marklum. It's a meaningless no statement.
You can't force them to make a cover for someone that really.
No, the neder is batal. That's the chiddush of our study. Chidushim nifloim. That's what he's told you. Great Gemara tonight. Tremendous chidushim. Okay. Yes. 3 animals.
What animal?
I don't remember. But it's an Osh we're going to have later in this after. I think it's an Osham, an Ola, and a, I don't remember, was it a Shlomim? No, a Nazir which came Tomei brings birds. That's a Tomei. Yeah. A Torah Nazir brings 3 animals, an Osham, a Ola, and a Shlomim. The Shlomim I remember is a ram. I don't remember the other ones. That's the Torah. Right. Nazir Torah brings birds and a chatos, I think, too. 2 birds and a chatos. Or maybe the bird is a chatos. 1 bird is a chatos, 1 bird is a olo. I don't know if there's a 3rd korban. Needless to say, this is explicit in the Chumash, and for the past 30-some-odd years of my life, I just haven't paying attention. But it is explicit in the Torah itself. You know, on you it's a taina, because you're supposed to know Tanakh. You haven't gotten to know so? It's coming up next week. Yeah. Yes. That's another term. The guys started being Shnei Turim or Shnei B'nai Yonah. 1 Chatos, 1 Lola. That's it. And the Iguana's Tar brings Kavis Ben Shnasa Lola. Oh no. It means also, it means Kavis Ben Shnasa Lola Shum as well. 3. 2 birds, Ola Chatos, and an Osham as well. The guy who's Tar brings Kavis Ben Shnasa Lola. The Kavsa Achas Bashnasa Chatos does bring Chatos. Vayal Echot Tamim L'Shlomim. So it's a chatos. So the Osham, I made a mistake. The one who became Tomei brings chatos, Ola, and Osham. The one who made Torah brings chatos and Ola and Shlomim as well. Right? Did I get that straight? The 2 birds for Nazir Tomei are chatos and Ola, and besides that, it brings an Osham. And by Nazir who made Torah, he brings 3 animals. One of them is a chatos, one of them is an ola, and one of them is an osham. I'm out. Got it wrong again. One of them is a chatos, one is an osham, one is a shlomi. No ola. Chatos, osham, and shlomi. Okay? No, you're right. Ola, chatos, and shlomi. No osham, sorry. Okay. That's an osham, that's right. The Torah just got a chatos, ola, and shlomi. Okay, that's correct. Okay. So Naaman. No birds. Only those Nazir Torah brings birds. Okay. Halacha vav. It's missing the halacha number. Harei le'echlei chati Nazir. Now we have the case of Chatzi Nazir. The guy says he has to be Megaleach half a Nazir. Now half a Nazir you would think of course means half his head, right? No, not quite. The Shemach Haver and his friend heard this. Now he sounds like an idiot, but his friend heard V'amar Vani said me too. Vani Olay Chatzi Nazir me too. Zeh Megaleach Nazir Shalom, Zeh Megaleach Nazir Shalom. So this says Tigray Meir. Meir says baloney. So such thing as happen Nazir. Each one of them pays for korbanos for the entirety of a Nazir. No, each one pays for the korbanos of half a Nazir. Now, what's korbanos of half a Nazir? What's korbanos of half a Nazir? It's like half the korbanos of a Nazir, which is the same thing, which means 1.5. There were 3 animals, 1.5 animals he pays for. Okay? The issue is where a generic one. the generic machlokes. But now we're specifying. So the Gemara says, what are they talking about? Ma should be ma on kayim. What are you talking about? Im omer. So the Gemara explains. Im omer. Now, I have to maybe say an introduction here. Nobody understood. I say this every so often, as you know. Nobody understood this Gemara until Beckhofer came along. None of them got it right. Not the Korban Eden, not the Pnei Moshe, not the Vilna Ephraim, not the Ritbaz, in my opinion, until I came along. Now, I always feel good about that when I could say that although I make corrections and ementations, I make less than all the previous Mefarshim. And that is the case here as well. I'm just going to change 2 words in the entire sugya, whereas the other Mefarshim go nuts. Okay? Some of them, simply don't understand. The others change a great deal. Okay, so I go. So that with that introduction, we're exuding total self-confidence to the point of haughtiness. So let me go on. So says the Gemara, wait a second. If I recall Chatzi Rosh, if he says the entire half a head, cold, the word cold there is critical. If he says Kol Chatzi Rosh, Kol Ha'Maydishim Gleich Nazir Shalom. Says I want to bring the entire half head. So that means he has to bring all 3 korbanos. And if he says I want to bring half of the obligation, then everybody agrees he only has to bring 1.5, right? Because he said half the obligation. Those are not issues on discussion. Elokenikim, what are we talking about? He didn't say kol chatzi. He just said chatzi, right? Before he said kol chatzi rosh. Now he just says chatzi. Koimer is a mistake. There's a word missing here. This is one of the words I'm adding in. Koimer kol chatzi rosh is as if he said the whole thing, and therefore Rabbanan says he has to bring all 3 korbanos. No exceptions. Rabbanan is saying the koimer chatzi chayvel. It's as if he said half of the obligation, right? Which means still he has to bring 1.5, right? So far so good. Makes sense, right? The Avad if he said kol chatzi rosh has to bring all 3. And if he said chatzi or chol, he has to bring 1.5. What if he said chatzi? So right? What? I could have just taken off the word rosh, right? Right? No, I have a reason for that. I have a reason. You'll see. This is the part from here to the Mishnah which nobody understood. But I'll tell you my pshat. Ashkechomer comes out kala v'chumarto tat the Ramir. There's a kula and a chumra Ramir. In other words, till now we've learned the chumra. The chumra is if he says chatzi, he says to bring all 3 korbanos. And 1.5 is not sufficient. He has to bring all 3. That's the chumra tat Ramir. But however, there's also a kula in Rabbi Meir. Al daiter Rabbi Meir. Al-Dair Meir Amar Chatzi Rosh maybe Korban Echad Sheken HaNazir Megalech Olav Korban Sholim. If he says half, I took out the word do. According to Meir, if he said Chatzi Rosh, then he only has to bring 1 korban. 1 korban out of 3. In other words, you thought he has to bring. No, Bino, could be you can get away without the word. We get away without the word chatzi here, without the rosh too, also as well. I'm not sure if you need rosh in both cases. I don't know. But in any event, the idea is chatzi rosh maybe korban echad. Shekei nazir megalech olav korban sholim. 1 korban is enough. The halacha is b'diavad if a nazir only brought 1 of his 3 korbanos. 1 out of 3 is not a bad batting average, right? He's yotzei. He can be megaleach afterwards, right? So according to Meir l'chatchila, the guy has to bring the guy who said all megaleach chatzi nazir, he has to bring l'chatchila 3 korbanos, right? But b'diavad, if he only brought 1, that's sufficient, because he focused on the giluach, on the capacity to cut the hair. And the capacity to cut the hair, it's true Chatchila requires 3. But b'diavad 1 is enough. So Chatchila Korban Meir, the guy who took upon the obligation of Galeh Chatzi Nazir, he has to bring Chatchila all 3 korbanos. But since he didn't say kol chatzi rosh, so with the Evid, one is enough. Because one is enough already on which to be megalech. Right? However, Daiti the Rabbanon, Rabbanon Dino Nami, chatzi choiva, then when you say chatzi, according to Rabbanon, it means not half of the, not what it takes to be megalech, half of the head, but rather it means half of what the obligation is. What's half of the obligation? Maybe korban u'mechza. There's no way to get around at least the korban and a half. Chatzi chovas yochid. Half of the responsibility of that individual. So according to Meir, there's both the kula and the chumrah. The chumrah is in the chatchila, the kula is in the b'diavad. The chatchila, according to Meir, if you said l'golei chatzi rosh, then he has to bring 3, because that's what it takes the chatchila to be megalech half a head. But just like b'diavad, the Nazir himself on korban is enough. B'diavad, according to Meir, one korban would be enough as well. Going to Rabbanan, they're making a chatchila. It's said to be 3. It's a zeil that's chatzi choiva. Whatever half the obligation is, not what it takes to cut half the head. So the chatchila you have to bring 1.5. And b'diavad, though, you also have to bring 1.5. Because it doesn't focus on what it takes to cut the hair, which is the yev is 1, but it focuses on what the half of the obligation is. And half of the obligation is always 1.5. So again, according to Meir, there's a chumrah l'chatchila that you must bring 3. But the yev, if you didn't do that, 1 suffices. According to Rabbanan, there's a kula in the l'chatchila that you only have to bring 1.5. But there's a chumrah in the yev that you can't get out of that 1.5. It's always that 1.5. Okay? Sounds good? Right. Because Rabbanan said chatzi choiva. Rabbanan explained when you say chatzi, it doesn't mean half of the head, and whatever it takes for the Nazir to cut half his head. It means that half of the obligation. The obligation on the Nazir is always 3 korbanos. The Rabbi said even if a Nazir brought 1 korban and shaved, he still has an obligation to bring the other 2. The obligation never goes away. It's just that from he has the achrayas to bring it, but from now on he can go to Beit Zakfaros and he can drink wine, but he still has to bring the other. He still has to bring the other 2 at some point in the future. Okay? Excuse me? Yes. He's still obligated. Okay? I think it's a beautiful track, and I didn't see anybody say it. I think it's endless. Okay. Says the Mishnah first. Iranian Nazir. This man, by the way, this whole thing is not in the Bible. It's something similar about it, but not the same thing. Iranian Nazir. Sheli Ben. Somebody says he wants a Nazir when he has a son. No, Ben, if he has a son, I raise a Nazir is a Nazir. What if he has a bas, a daughter, a tumtum, or right? We don't know whether the kid is male or female. Andreas, the kid is both. Ain't no Nazir is not a Nazir. Game Omar, if he says Shirley Vlad, if I have a kid, not a boy, I feel no bas or tumtum, even if the kid is a daughter, a tumtum, or Andreas, I raise a Nazir is a Nazir nonetheless. Says the Gemara, bas lo klub. By a daughter, it's tak enough because he said son in the ratio, right? But tumtum and Andreas, tzricha, it's a suffix. But even though it said Eino Nazir in the Mishnah, it's not really Eino Nazir. Because the tumtum and Andreas, you don't know what they are, right? So therefore, misafik, he has to be a Nazir. It says Eino Nazir means Eino Nazir Vadai. Or it says Eino Nazir because by daughter you're Eino Nazir. But by tumtum and Andreas, misafik, you have to be a Nazir. He pila ishto. What if his wife miscarried? Eino Nazir. It's not a Nazir. Rabbi Shimon says, Yorma, I should say, just be on the safe side. You should say, Ima ya ben kayama, if the kid was a viable kid, Haredi Nazir chayva. I'm a Nazir, mandatory, because the kid was viable. Bilav, if not, Haredi Nazir kunadav, I'm volunteering my Nazirs right now. Chazav yota, what if the next time around she did give birth to a viable kid? Haredi's a Nazir, so this time he's a Nazir, because his natter still stands. Because he didn't give a time limitation. Said if my daughter gives birth to a kid, and now the second time around, it was a kid, right? However, Rabbi Shimon makes it convoluted, because Rabbi Shimon holds he already kept the Nazirus, right? but the first one was on Suffolk, right? Because they didn't know if the kid was viable or not. And between the two of them, he only wants to keep one Nazirus Mikra din. So what does he do? So Rabbi Shimon says, Yoimar, he should say, Ima Rishon ben Kayama, but the first one was the viable child. Rishon Chova, my first Nazirus was obligatory. V'zu Dov, the one I'm about to embark on, is optional. Being lav, if vice versa, Rishon Dov, the first one is optional. V'zu Chayva, and this one is the mandatory one. Okay? Says more. I'll start talking according to Rabbanon. Why are we afraid that the kid is a valuable kid? So it says, Rabbi Yochanan said to Rabbi Yehuda, he was going like Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda, Safik Nazirus is mutter. A Safik Nazirus for Mekel. It's mutter. Means we're not just Mekel, but we say it's okay. So if you have a Safik, if the kid was viable or not, you don't have to keep the Nazirus, right? Rabbi Yehuda, sorry. Late, so he said back to him. It doesn't say who said back to Rabbi Yochanan, but the assumption of Pei Moshe is that it's Reish Lakish. Who else is going to say back to Rabbi Yochanan?
Why did he die?
Freak of nature. The Yerushalmi is the Shitasa, by the way. The Yerushalmi holds that if you have a kid who's stillborn, it's possible it was a Badakayom, and you might have to sit Shiva. The Bavli holds not that way. We had that back in my cousin when you weren't here. But that's a machlosh in the Bavli Yerushalmi where their kid is stillborn and shy to call it Ben Kayom or not. Yerushalmi holds it might be a Ben Kayom. Okay? So says the Gemara, Amar lay, third line the Gemara, and again we assume it's Reish Lakish. Lo Amar Abuda Elo is Basof. Now, Kormei read Bakshin Girsa, but the Pnei Moshe does not, and the Oriyosha does not either. And I understand if you change the Girsa the way they did, so I'm just going to ignore it. So it says, Lo Amar Abuda Elo Basof. Abuda only said a little Basof, meaning B'di'evet you can make them. Chatchila, or Rabbi Yehuda's mother, Chatchila Rabbi Yehuda's mother. So it's true something that Zerus is mutter, but that's only ex post facto. Well, Chatchila you have to be machmir, so too you should have to be machmir that the kid may be ben kayoma. How can you not be machmir? So it says the Gemara really doesn't answer this, but in the Bavli, the Korban Yosh brings down Bavli Daf Ches Merav. The Rabbi Yochanan says that there's a difference when you already have become a Nazir, or you have not yet become a Nazir. Okay, and that's what the Gemara is about to say. What's b'diavad? Amar Shuvah Rabbi Yitzchak. Yitzchak says, "Ein yodeim nazarti," right? V'im nazarti, v'im lo nazarti. Ein yodeim nazarti lo nazarti. Ahenu b'chatchila. That's the chatchila. A guy should be machmir. He doesn't know if he was menazir or not. So then the chatchila should be machmir and take upon himself the nazirus. Im arboim chamishim. If one second. Now I'm stuck. No, I think I understand the dafka the other way. The way they changed the girsa. 1 minute. Yeah. Now, it happens occasionally this way to me during shiur. When I prepare, I understand one way, and during shiur, I understand another way. Now, I understand better according to the way Pnei Moshe, the Korban and Ritbaz change it. Let me go back and explain to you how I see it now. I'm Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said to Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda, myself, Nazir's mutter. Amalei lo Rabbi Yehuda elo. L'chatchila, he changes the words, he transposes l'chatchila myself. That which Rabbi Yehuda is makos only batchila, but l'basof, l'basof he's machmir. At the end he's machmir. What is that? So of Rabbi Yehuda Moidi. What's B'sof? I'm sure by Rabbi Yitzchak, and Yodim Nazar to be lo Nazarti. If a person says, I don't know if I made Nazirus or not. Now, he doesn't know if it's Nazirus or not. So in that case, that's called B'tchila. That's before he became a Nazir. So in that case, Rameir could say, you don't take upon yourself a Nazirus B'tchila. In other words, B'tchila here does not necessarily mean this, and b'diavad does not mean like normally it means, which is before the fact and after the fact. But here l'chatchila means whether it becomes a nazir, and basof means after he's become a nazir. So therefore, the example is if a person's not sure if he took upon himself naziris or not, 60 days, harei ahim basof, that's basof. Because there is definitely a nazir already. So once you've established chazal to be a nazir, you have to be more machmir. Or it's to become a nazir, and you have a doubt in that you can be makel. But once you became a nazir, and you have a doubt in the extent of your nazirus, that you have to be machmir. Okay? So here, we go l'kula. That's what Rabbi Yochanan said. Rabbi Yochanan said we go l'kula. Why? Because in our Mishnah, we're talking about we're not sure if the kid was a Ben Kayam or not. So he never, Vade became a Nazir. Well, he's definitely a Nazir, then, and it's further speaks about his Nazirs were Machmir. But to become a Nazir or not, in that Safik we're making. What? Yeah, but they're going to see that's the problem which bothered me this morning too. The more never bangs down Rabbi Yochanan's answer. So I'm assuming that Lo Rabbi Yehuda is the question. Lo Rabbi El Basov Avachila Af Rabbi Yehuda. Yeah. I'm not sure where to begin Rabbi Yochanan's answer, but I think that that's Rabbi Yochanan's answer. Okay, let me try from the beginning. Maybe the kid is viable. So Rish Lakish said, isn't that not true? In other words, it's missing the question. And then Rabbi Yochanan says, Lo Rabbi Yehuda ela l'chatchila. No, so I tell you what, according to Rabbi, it's not even a question. Just a qualification. Because Rish Lakish is qualifying, wherever it is. Amalei says, Lo Rabbi Yehuda, you should know. Lo Rabbi Yehuda ela l'chatchila. Avasov Rabbi Yehuda moide. The Rabbi Yehuda only is meko before we question whether to become a Nazir or not. Once you're Nazir, even Rabbi Yehuda's machmir. Ez b'tchila so far Rabbi Shul bar Rabbi Yitzchak, any of them Nazarti, lo Nazarti, Hayna b'tchila, and there you can be meko. Rabbi Chamish meinu basof, and there he has to be machmir. Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Amar Ispalgu, Rabbi Chia bar Baal, for Rabbi Shmuel bar Rabbi Yitzchak. Kol Modeh, everybody agrees. Any of them Nazarti, lo Nazarti. A guy says, I know if he became a Nazir or not. I know B'tchil, that's B'tchil, and that's the case where Rabbi Yehuda's makel. Im Arba'in Chamishim, Hayim Basof. That's at the end, and there Rabbi Yehuda is machmir, right? Ma'plin, the shilas, what's a machlokes? Im achas ushtayim. The machlokes, we have a machlokes when it's a case of one or two, right? Rabbi Chia bar Bar Yitzchak argued about this. But the guys that sure if he took upon himself one or two. Rabbi Chia bar Bar Avilei Basar, Rabbi Chia said, L'yurei are mechuyev one Naziris. The second Naziris is a tack-on. We're always machmir on tack-ons. Rabbi Shmuel Avilei Kavatchila. Rabbi Shmuel says, it's no, the second one is independent of the first one. And therefore the second one is judged on its own. And therefore on its own, we say it's something Naziris Lakel. So when in the extension of one Naziris which already exists, and that we say you have to be machmir, because you're already considered to be a Nazir. However, in the case where we don't know if you're a Nazir or not, they were a Meko, and we loath to make you a Nazir. But you're once a Nazir, and then to become a second time a Nazir is something, and that's a machlokas. What's that like? It's like going from scratch to one, or it's like going from 40 days to 50 days. It's like going from scratch to one, would be Meko there as well. It's like going from 40 days to 50 days, would be machmir on it. Okay, that's what the Gemara says. And therefore you don't have to, I'm sorry, Barba Avalei itself, and therefore you have to be machmir. And therefore you can make it. The Mara says, Im achas, im shtayim, tzrichel rashur yitzach, hu b'tchila v'sof. He says it's a suffix. He doesn't have a firm position on the matter. He has a suffix. What exactly the halacha is? I guess it's weird. So I shut up and now I talk to him. Yeah, it makes sense.
You could say it was just dog change for the first place. Because the only time when you lose Mako is when it's a matter of keeping longer. He says you don't have to keep any longer. Once you have 40, that's enough.
Yeah, but then no, that won't make sense.
At all, for sure you have to do it.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. No, because then you can't explain our Mishnah being Rabbi Yehuda. That's what I was thinking, but it says our Mishnah Rabbi Yehuda, where it says where there was a miscarriage, you don't have to keep it off. So you have to say, if you're going to say our Mishnah like Rabbi Yehuda, it has to mean that B'tchila means that when you have a question about the Naziris itself, you don't have to keep it. Yeah, but the Gemara never says that explicitly. Doesn't say so. I'm just gonna. But I guess one could fetch in. Obviously, Pnei Moshe does, but Pnei Carbonate and Pnei and Ridpas just change it. Okay, next Mishnah. Halacha Tes. Haredi Nazir v'Nazir. Nazir. President says he's a Nazir v'Nazir. I'm sorry, I stopped middle sentence. Haredi Nazir v'Nazir Sheli Bey. Says he wants to be Nazir, and wants to be Nazir again when the kid is born then. What happens if you start counting on the Nazirs? But Ben, Hatin lets the amount, the allotted term, let's say it's 30 days. Okay, he was born 20 days later after he made his Nazir. Nazirus. Masha Bishlo, he completes his oath. Then he counts his kids. Okay? Harani Nazir, that's easy. And the problem is the next case. Harani Nazir Sheli Ben. Which one did he say first? His sons. The one on his son. Vin Nazir and a Nazir on my own. And he started counting his own. And then his kid was born. So in that case, since he took upon himself the netter for in honor of his kid before his own netter, he's got to stop his. Count his kids. And then only afterwards go back to his own. Okay? So it all depends which netter you took by yourself first. If you took by yourself a netter of yourself first, so you complete yours, then you go to your kids. But if you took upon a netter on your kid first, even though your kid is not yet born, you have to interrupt, go to your kid's netter, and then only come back to yours at the end. Okay? Good question. What? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Yeah, it is interesting, and the Yerushalmi makes it more interesting. Rabbi Yossi asks, Amar Reini Nazir L'Shloshim. Yoy. Elu L'Shloshim Yom Elu. Now the way the Ritbaz learns it, it means, he said I'm a Nazir for these 30 days, Unachamol for the same 30 days. Okay? So, Azakaka made me nether, right? He said he wants to be Nazir in the same 30 days twice. So, what's the status? So, we had a look earlier. The person says, Harani Nazir, Vin Nazir, it means they're in succession, right? But here he says, he specified specifically the same 30 days, right? Now, what's his status? What does he do? Now, what choice does he do? Do you ask to do one and then the other, right? But let's say that it's a chapter mishugas. I'm going to say the Ritbaz. It's not mishugana. He said, Harani Nazir Shloshim Yom Elu, Vishloshim Yom Elu, and then he started counting his second one before his first one. Now, in other words, he said, Harani Nazir 30 days, no, these 30 days, and these 30 days, which is the same 30 days, and I'm starting to count now my second Nazir, it's not my first one. That's what he said. Okay? What difference does it make, right? So what's the status? Rabbi Zir said he can't do this. It's not a Mishnah. In the Sefer of our Mishnah it says, he's got to forsake his own and count his sons first. Now, and here's a very critical point, and it says the Gemara. It should be below. It's not about few ishto yosheves mashber. See, even if his wife is on the birthing chair, meaning the Sefer of the Mishnah he wants to say is the same case you just asked, because the Sefer of the Mishnah is where they're simultaneous. Because he says he's a Nazir for his kid's birth and for himself, and his wife is already giving birth. So the kid is coming out. So therefore, it said this same case. And what does it say about this case in the Mishnah? It says he can't keep his own first. He's got to keep the kids first. Because what he came out of his mouth first? The kid. So Harani Nazir for his son, and then for himself. Right? So too, in your case, he said Harani Nazir Shloshim Yom Elu. Shloshim Yom Elu, he's got to keep the first nether before the second nether. If for some mishugana reason you say it's keeping the second nether before the first nether, it doesn't work. It's meaningless. It's null and void. It's got to desist from keeping the second nether and go back to the first one.
One case is that it's 2-9.
Yeah.
9 and a regular application. And the other case is just 2 regular applications.
You're saying good. First of all, before I get there, the Ritbaz says it's not like Tosfos. The Tosfos says in the Bavli that if you say in this case Harani Nazir Sheli Ben Nazir, If the kid is born then, he only keeps one Nazirus. Because like it's tonight, like you were saying, right? So you said Yerushalmi argues on that. Yerushalmi says, even though, I mean, it's not the point you made, it's a related point. Even though it was like a tonight, even though it sounded like a tonight, he has to keep both Nazirus. Right? So that's why he has to keep first his kid's Nazirus, and then his own Nazirus. Because since his wife is already on the birthing chair, so they vows upon him simultaneously, and he expressed his kid's Nazirus first, so he must keep his kid Nazirus for the kid first, and then his Nazirus for himself. But says the Gemara, there's no comparison between his Nazirus and Nazirus on his kid, right? Because they're two separate things, and he placed his kid's Nazirus before his, so therefore they're very, very different. As opposed to where he takes upon himself the same identical Nazirus twice in succession, right? With our case, it's similar. It's only similar to the following case. Lo damia ella. It's only similar to the following case. Elama arei nazir mikvar. And why do you be nazir for now? The nazir lachar yesim. And why do you be nazir 20 days from now? Now, 20 days from now, it's a problem, right? Because when is his first nazirus over? Minimum 30 days. So what is he going to do 20 days from now? So Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yossi ben Chanina, Tarvei and Rami, they both said, Hishlim, now I'm going to change all the Gersos here like the Shai Teres Eretz Yisrael. Hishlim, Nazirus, I'm sorry. That's a new case. It's a case that Arei knows, you require Nazir Lachar Esim Yom. And I can forget what the halacha is in that case. What is the case, the halacha in that case? Yeah, I think you're right. You have to complete the first one and then you go to the second one. So here too, you have to complete the first one before you go to the second one. So therefore you have to revert to the first one before going to the second one. So keeping the second one before the first one, even though it's the same 30 days, is meaningless. You have to go in whatever order it is hierarchically more significant. Either the chronology or the statements, whatever is more significant, so you have to go in order. Now, continuing with this line of thought, Rabbi Yossi they both said, he going on the Sefer. Hishlim, and here that's what's going in order to make on the Sefer, Shaitar so change the next line. Hishlim Nazirus beno. He kept your son's Nazirus first. La'olam ein Nazirus so. See that switch there? Nazirus is not chalolav, doesn't work. Next word, 5 words it changes. Tach yobi korban v'galech kanozir. Now, Zoin Pino asked before. The way he learns it, if I take upon myself Nazirus for my kid, and then Nazirus of my own, I have to interrupt in the middle. I can't flow from one into the other. And according to Shai Teretz argues on the Bavli. Because the Bavli, Rashi on the Bavli. It's no real Rashi in those, but there's a parish which is called Rashi. So there the Rashi says, you can go straight from Nazirus on your kid to your own Nazirus. But according to the Yerushalmi, according to Shai Teretz Yisrael learns it, you can't. In order for it to be a fulfillment of your neder, you have to keep 2 separate Nazirus. So you have to be Megalech on the Nazirus for your kid, and then only begin your own Nazirus afterwards, which makes a lot of sense. Right? He's like, Loam ein Nazirus chalav, ad she'avi kor Megalech, ken Nazir shenikma. Just like a Nazir became Tomei. He can't get Por Aduma water sprinkled on him, become Torah and start again immediately. He's got to be Korbanos first. There's got to be formal cessation from the first period and a commencement of the second period. So to the same thing with this guy over here. So more is going to answer class contradiction. Contradiction. How so? Talmud Omer over there says, Tomei Meis Shenazar. Guy is Tomei Meis, he took upon himself Nazirus. Can he begin his Nazirus where he's Tomei Meis? No, right? There's a contradiction. You can't become Tomei Meis and become a Nazir. Right? Unless Nazir Shimsho. But regular Nazir can't, right? Tomei Meis Nazir, Shvi Shalo is 7th day, Olo Minamina. The 7th day of Por Aduma water sprinkling, he becomes Tor in the middle of the day. That counts, and he begins his Nazir's Bo Bayern. Nazir Shinitma, Nazir became Tomei, and Shvi Shalo Olo Minamina. his seventh day doesn't count, even though he became tahor. Why? Because God made his korbanos first, right? But as Yerushalmi, if you call loket Tmei Meis, Nazar here, Nazar, isn't this analogous to Tmei Meis who made an Nazirus? Nazar who? The lo Tmei Meis Nazar, Shvish lo olam min aminyan, and the Tmei Meis who made an Nazirus, his seventh day counts. Shenu Zok, why? Shenu Zok lo lavi korban tuma. He doesn't have to bring a korban on his tuma. Sham is asking a Gavaldic question. Sham is asking, when do I say this guy bring korbanos before he starts again where he was tummy? And he has to bring a korban on becoming tummy. He has to have kapara on the tumah. So he can't start counting his Nazirus Tahara until he brings korbanos on the tumah. But let's say he wasn't a Nazir Shneitma. He was a Nazir, it was a person sitting Shiva. So then he doesn't have to bring korbanos before he begins his Nazirus. He goes straight from Shiva. After he got Paradumu, what is the sprinkle on him? After he got up after Shachris in the morning, he goes straight into his Nazirus. So too here. But why can't he go straight from the Nazirus on his son to Nazirus of his own? There's no kapara to be had. He doesn't have to kapara. He has to bring kapara, so he'll bring all the kaparas at the end. Why can't he go straight from one to the other? Why? That's Yerushalmi's question. We'll come out. Yerushalmi is going to answer that. We'll leave it up for tomorrow.